You're listening to the Couch Friends podcast with Crystal, Jenna, and Christy.
Welcome back to the Couch Friends. We have all of our dogs here today. Biscuit's excited, apparently. This week, we're going to go ahead and just continue from our episode from last week as soon as I can get Biscuit down here. Hold on.
It's like, Mom, I want to sit in your lap.
Yeah, so we have Jonelle here with us still. We got to hear just her really, honestly, a story that has a lot of heartbreak in it. And last week we ended kind of at the hardest part of your story, where you had finally decided to leave this violent man for good. Such a brave act to finally do it. However, it didn't just 100% get better for you, did it?
No,
So
not at all.
It's a long uphill climb from there. So we wanted to go ahead and just hear what happened next. Tell us a little bit more.
You know, it's really interesting the way you said that, because I always told people that the hardest part really wasn't the violence. And it's kind of also crazy, since last week when I was sharing in here, I never usually really talk about the domestic violence part. I usually always talk about this next part I'm going to share today, because to me, I've learned that people don't usually really want to hear about domestic violence. It's kind of crazy, because people will have their judgments one way or another, and I've actually I've gotten triggered worse, or people didn't believe me. But yeah, after I left, Easter of 2016, things got so much worse. All of the threats that he said would happen to me if I left, like, he would hire the best attorney he could find, and he would present what he needs to present to ruin me. And he did that. And it was war ever since. So he just made up lies constantly. And the judge, I would always assume the judge would do the right thing, I'm like, this is America. This is justice. We're not. The mother always gets the kids in Florida.
So they deny your injunction, and the judge gives him full custody?
He gave him full custody, care, and control. So then he waited 10 days before he let me even see them. I couldn't even talk to the kids most of the time. So it was the worst 10 days ever. But once we went to court, the judge was angry at me because I can't figure out how to work it out with his attorneys. Like, I've asked, and he's refusing to let me see the kids because I'm a danger and a threat for no reason. They didn't have any excuse. So eventually they agreed to let me have them every weekend. And so I would come. I was staying at a shelter for abused women. I think, did I mention that last week?
Yeah.
About how,
but then you had to leave, didn't you? Because
he was stalking.
He was showing up.
Yeah, he showed up, and it was a breach. So I had to move to Ocala, and it was an hour and a half away. But every single chance I got, anytime, they started giving me Wednesdays too, Wednesday afternoons, and I would show up, I'd drive an hour and a half, spend a couple hours with them, and drive back, just to see them and let them know that I love them. But they were being fed all kinds of stuff. Their attitudes started to change towards me. The day that I got that document in March 30th, 2016, with the police there, I'll never forget when they had the kids in the room or in the house while they handed me the paper. And so I'm begging them, like, don't leave my kids here. And they're like, well, and I showed them the document from the DCF. They were like, they called the captain. They're like, you can't go against a judge's orders. You have to take that to court. We can't, we have to do what the order says. So I was like, can I at least say goodbye to the kids? And they were like, do you think that's a good idea? And I'm like, yeah. Because I'm not going to let him tell them whatever it is. I need to know them to know. So I went to the door and I told them goodbye, and my son didn't understand. So he was like, bye, Mom. Even though he was super attached to me. So I thought it was weird. I couldn't even go to the grocery store without, their dad saying, he has to go with you, because he just cries for you the whole time. Like, I just want to go to that grocery store. But he was just like, okay. But my daughter knew exactly what was going on, because she still remembered. It was still fresh in her mind about Easter and how terrified she was. And she like this, there was like no other explanation for it. She just was grabbing my pant leg like in a movie, like literally in a movie, and begging me not to leave, and grabbing my belt loop. I'll still remember that. Like, she's like, please, like screaming for me not to leave. And I just like, I had to, and he pulled her off of me, and she was like ready, but I had to kind of like pull her off. And I just looked at him like, you're the worst human being on the planet. The worst. Like, who does this to the person you say you love? You hurt me in every single way possible, but this is worse. Yeah. This is worse. That was by far the worst thing, the worst day. And my father had died previous to that. I thought that was the worst day. This was the worst day by far. And so from then on out, from like June or July of 2016 to around Christmas time, they allowed me to, we had several, motions that we put through the court, all in his favor. Everything that I asked for relocation, denied. We've had multiple hearings on this. We didn't have one. And then I started to look him up online to see if it's just me. I'm like,
look up the judge?
Yeah.
Okay.
I found out there was like a whole website devoted to him. Like, and there was a whole website devoted to all of these judges that have done some kind of corrupt thing. So on his page specifically, there were so many people that would put their phone numbers out there and like put their contacts, like, I need to talk to somebody about this. And so I got into contact with somebody. Her name was Angela.
Wow.
So yeah, that's the kind of court I was dealing with. I knew there was no chance.
No.
Angela told me right up front, whatever you think is going to happen, it's not going to happen. He's gonna, it's already set. This is what's happening. So I was like, that's very negative. I hope she's wrong.
Yeah.
Then I saw it firsthand, and she was not wrong. Then he told me, like in October, if you move to Orlando from Ocala, I will give you more time. And he looked at me. I'll never forget these words. You have to earn back time with your children. Earn. As if I'm on punishment, like a little girl who has done something wrong to destroy a relationship. I was not on drugs. I was working. I'm a normal human being, a loving mother who was a stay-at-home mom too. While he worked and he did drugs, he did all these things. He did everything wrong, but I had to earn back my children. That was humiliating, I'd say, is the word. Or there's so many feelings and emotions I got from that. Like, I didn't feel like there was anything I could be doing differently to earn back these kids.
It wouldn't have mattered.
It wouldn't have mattered, but I did it anyway because I trusted him. Because at the end of the day, what else choice do I have? I have to just try. So I looked around for an apartment, found a job in Orlando, and I got one in December. And that's when I moved here in December of 2016. And I brought all the evidence to my lawyer. She's like, give me pictures of you and your kids in the apartment having fun. And I gave her a whole stack.
Yeah.
And then she asked me not to go to this hearing for some reason. She's like, you just stay there. I'll take care of it. And so I called her the day of the hearing, and she goes, well, I gave him the pictures and everything, but he's just going to give you Wednesday afternoons. Like, that's exactly what I had. I think maybe he might have tacked on an hour of that, which was already horrible enough to bring them back. Because he would at that time he was using that opportunity to yell obscenities at me during the exchange. At least on the weekends I could pick them up from school and drop them off.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have to see him. But I think he liked that. He wanted Wednesdays afternoons so that he could have a face-to-face interaction with me.
Yeah.
I wanted nothing to do with him. I wanted nothing to do with him. But he just, one way or another, just figured out different ways to continue to put me back in my place. It was kind of like that first incidence of violence where I'm getting put out the door. Is like, your behavior needs to be this or you're punished, and it was the same thing I was getting from the courts. So it's like reoccurring victimization, because it was like also reinforcement too. Like, it was like, he says I'm bad, I don't feel like I'm bad. There was the psychological abuse was always, you're never gonna make it without me. If you try to leave, you're gonna fail. And then if I would want to get a job to be independent, he would sit there and tell me, you'll never get a job. If you get a job, then they'll fire you because you're worthless. You suck. And you can't make money like me. I am the breadwinner. I pay for this roof over this head. You just sit around and do nothing and eat bonbons all day. So cliche.
Yeah.
So cliche, stupid male chauvinist crap. And I believed it because I didn't believe it, but it got into my head. So even then I'm like, you're stupid. And I would look at my, laptop and be like, I'm going to find a job and I can qualify for this. And then I would hear, no, you'll get fired. No, you suck. You won't, you can't make it. And I'd shut the laptop. So every time I failed during that time period with the courts, it would confirm that. He was right. I can't do this. I can't. I am worthless. And my family, just never encouraged me either. So it's like every step of the way, it was always like some people would only support me if it made them look good, or tell people like, oh, my sister's going through corruption in the courts, can you believe it? Or my daughter, and then they wouldn't explain, other than that. Nobody really understood. I just felt alone the whole time. I just never felt like I had anybody to care about me. So I just kept going, even though it was hard. And then we had our first trial. And I decided my mom and I decided she was paying for everything. I'm grateful that she did pay for, it was like $70,000 in attorney's fees. Yeah. So she decided maybe we should get another lawyer. I switched the female lawyer. She was new. So I wanted to fight fire with fire. Get a lawyer that's like his lawyer.
Yeah,
a pit bull. That's a corrupt one like him.
You can't beat him, join him.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna fight fire with fire on this one. And I literally had that advice from a priest. Actually, the priest. That I think he believed me. I know he does. I know he does now. I still keep in contact every once in a while. He'll call me out of nowhere. But he said so many things to me that really helped me that day. It was a really bad day. And he had a picture of Jesus laughing on the wall. And he goes, you are crying right now, but you see that picture? He's laughing. He's laughing because he's not scared. He knows it's going to be all right. And for some reason, I just believed him because it was real, and it is true. That was true. But he said, you know what you need to do? You need to fight fire with fire. You get one of those attorneys that he's got. Yeah. And so I loved that he said that. And when I would tell him, I randomly call him things, he would finish my sentences. I go this just seems... And he goes, vindictive? And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what. He understood me of all the people. So we got a new attorney. This guy he didn't know anything about domestic violence, and some of the things that he would say to me just really pissed me off.
Yeah.
It really pissed me off because, but I knew it just, that was the perspective anyway that I was already getting. But he would say things like, I feel like I'm your life coach. But some of that advice I still think about. For example, he told me this one time. He goes, why? I would send him text messages of like me arguing with him. I'm like, look at how ridiculous he's
Arguing with your ex?
Yeah, arguing with my ex. And I would give him the documentation being like, look, see, I'm right. And he goes, let me tell you something. The judge's eyes are going to glaze over when he sees this because it's you arguing with him. He's going to go, I don't know who's to blame. Let him be crazy all on his own. Don't send him anything and see what happens because he will out crazy you. He's got this. He knows how to do this.
They will destroy themselves.
They destroy themselves. And this is a concept that was new to me. However, has carried me through years beyond that. Like I still, to this day, when people act crazy, just let them be crazy and smile, because they are going to wear themselves down. And it's amazing what the difference is I could never control him. Never. No matter how much I would tell him, you're the crazy one. He would just find a way to turn that around back on me. And I'd just be like, okay, sure. Yeah. That sounds good. And he'd be like, oh, and he'd get even worse. And then he would send me more and more. And then I'd be like, stop harassing me. I'm done for today. And you're like, you're harassing me. No. And then he looks like a psycho, right?
Yeah.
Still, the judge, of course, doesn't care. But he also told me something that was along those lines. He said, if you like a fire, you sit at a fire and you watch it burn. You hear the crackling and you smell the smells and you just watch it, right? You don't stick your hand in there, do you? And I was like, nope. And he's like, then why bother? What, you're just burning yourself. You're just making yourself upset because you're not going to fix the fire. Just let it burn.
Yeah.
Let it burn.
It'll put itself out eventually.
And it's exactly what happened. But I learned those lessons and it still didn't help court-wise. So we went to the first court date. I have all the transcripts. So it was split into 2 days, 2 horrifying days. It was horrible. Because they're supposed to finish it that first day, but he let his side go from 8:30 or 9 o'clock till like 5:30.
A whole day?
Wow. A whole day. And he called all these witnesses that didn't do him any good. Once it was my turn, it was about 5:30. They let me go for like 30 minutes. And we started to bring this evidence. I had video evidence of him taking the phone on these phone calls. They were bizarre. Even my attorney was like, you can't unsee something like that. We played that, and the judge was like, nope, not going to hear this evidence, like 10 seconds into it. And my lawyer's like, excuse me? And he goes, well, there's no reason for this. He's not harming the kids. And he's like, but he's doing it in front of the children. And he's like, nope. And he's like, do you want me to make the decision now? Because it's about 7 o'clock and I'm hungry, ready for dinner. Or do you want to extend it to another day? The lawyer had me come outside. He goes, well, we could let him make the decision today. And I'm like, no.
But you had 30 minutes.
Yeah, I didn't get any time. And he goes, well, I don't, or he's like, all right, if that's what you want. So I go in there and he tells him, like, we're going to extend for another day. He goes, fine. And then he just walks out. Things just got so much worse from there. It just got so much worse. That was in April of 2017. May 12th of 2017, I have permission from my daughter to talk about this part. But she told me one day, without going into details, that she was molested by her brother-in-law under his care. So like her dad took them over. We used to take them over to her sister's house. It was her half sisters, and she was married, and apparently he had her stay the night over there one night, which I would have taken them. I have to have her babysit. I would have taken them anytime, but he wouldn't do that. So she told me, and I was afraid. I was afraid to say anything because, you know, in the past he had already used that argument that I call the DCF and police for valid reasons, like a bruise, black eye, and like, you know, bruises and things like that, that got dismissed. So I was afraid. I was afraid to call the DCF. That's what they're there for. And I knew they were going to say that I was making it up. I was at that time seeing a domestic violence counselor, and she's like, you have to tell. You have to tell. And I was like, I don't want to. I don't want to. And I said, I'll think about it. And then I told my lawyer, and he goes, let me call you back. And he talked to his partner. He goes, legally, I can't tell you not to report this. But I'm telling you, if you report this and they find out it's false in any way, say goodbye to your kids forever. What? Yeah. That's a lot of pressure. That was a lot. So we either talk, do the right thing for this kid.
Yeah.
Or let it happen again, because he never got in trouble for it. It's only going to get worse. He was just grooming at that point. It was getting to that point. So he's like, you need to have a professional tell you. You need to have some person that could come to court and say that before you made this phone call, they said it. So I found somebody named Dr. Piddington, which I already knew him from. He already knew my case because of my family coming in there with my daughter for therapy and everything. And I sent him an email. I said, can I come and talk to you? And it's very sensitive, so it needs to be in person. And he's like, absolutely. Like, it was within minutes. He like emailed me back, and he's like, come like now. So he was so sweet about it. And I went to his office. I was like, I saw like Harvard stuff on the wall and everything. I was like, did you go to Harvard? He goes, I teach at Harvard. I'm like, what? So he was like that prestigious. And so I told him, and he goes, why wouldn't you tell? Why wouldn't you make the call? And I go, I think I'm going to lose my kids. He goes, why? And I'm like, because the judge already hates me. And he goes, so? He goes, there's no way he would do that. You really think he's going to? I'm like, you don't know.
Yeah.
This is a common response at that time.
Right.
So many people would be like, you're crazy. There's not in America.
Well, it's not logical. Yeah. I mean,
yeah. It's not. And it just seems like I'm a conspiracy theorist. That's what people wash me with. You're crazy. You're crazy. It's more gaslighting from everybody. Yeah. It was like on every scale. So he goes, just call. And if they say something, I will come and testify for you. I will come to court and say that I told you to call. Okay. So I immediately called. The DCF came out to my apartment. It was on a Wednesday when I had to give them back. And they took her down to the kids' house of Seminole County, where they do DCF investigations, like further ones. And they had a sex crime detective come. They had a professional there that specialized in violence with children, and they had the DCF agent that came out to do the initial investigation. So all three of them took her into a room by herself, and they have these like special ways of asking the kids to see if there's coaching involved, because especially for cases like this where it's custody based, it's gonna, like, a lot of times people make false allegations to get the custody back or whatever. And that was not the case here. I was hoping, if anything, that he would change his mind and be like, let's come together for our daughter. And like, let's forget about this court stuff and let's just take care of her.
Handle that, yeah.
So they put me in a room to tell me the results, and I'll never forget, like, sitting there at that table, and they were like, yeah, we verified it. Like, she was molested. But then they told me, like, more details that she didn't even tell me, that I just, like, almost threw up, like, at that moment. And they said we asked her every single possible way that we could ask. And this is just what happened. Like, there was no coaching. And so I got the report. And so next they said we need to call the father. And so they called him to come down to the police station, because now they got to question him, the other guy, the brother-in-law. And so they also got to tell him in person. So the detective comes in and he says, I tried to tell him, but he's just screaming at me about Judge this, Judge that, some judge, and she's just making up this thing about a bruise. He thought I called about a bruise. And like, she always does this. She always makes up stuff. And he goes, be quiet. He's like, I literally had to tell him, be quiet. Yeah. And he said his jaw started chattering like that, because he did that a lot. It was psycho. Like, how you could clearly see the psychoticness of this guy. Yeah. And he was like, it was so bizarre when I told him to be quiet, and then I told him, your daughter has been molested, and he stopped, and then he just went right back to, oh, she's just making this up, and da 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 da. No care. He goes, sir, this is about your daughter. This has nothing to do with her. This is da da da. He couldn't. And he's like, give me my kids. I want to go home. So, long story short on that guy got away with it because they couldn't get a confession out of him. But the detective said, I know he did it, because the way that he questioned him, there was some holes, and he reversed the answers that he was supposed to say if he was telling the truth. So I was able to go get an injunction, a temporary injunction, right away from the DCF report. And we had a judge, Deborah was an amazing judge. And he argued, he hired an attorney. Oh, she's just saying this because she doesn't want us to come on the vacation. And I'm like, what? That's a new one. That's a new one. And she's like, the judge was like, what are you talking about? Well, we have a vacation plan that she found out about, and she doesn't want me to go to it. And that's why she made this up. And the judge looked at him and goes, I don't care he goes, we already paid for it. So she goes, I don't care what you paid for. You're going to lose the money. You're not going on this vacation. You're not going to be there.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Finally. So, the dad wasn't there. Chris wasn't there. And I, went to drop off the kids that day, or pick them up or something. And I said, did you hear about what happened today? And he pushed me into the car because he was angry, because I heard, and he like literally shoved me into the car. I wish I was recording. My mom was right there, witnessed it. Nothing I could do. Told my lawyer about it. He didn't care. Nope, can't prove it. So he's just your words against his. So I started recording it after that, and then they used that against me in the next hearing. So he brought it to his judge, trying to get custody at this point. Now there was a motion for something to change the temporary custody, and claiming that I made it all up to ruin the vacation. And so I had my lawyer get evidence, because he put in the motion that I called the DCF on him in 2016, in the summer of 2016. I know I didn't. He was on vacation. That's where they're getting this whole vacation thing. He went to New Smyrna, and the DCF got called while he was out there. I didn't call them. I knew I didn't, but he brought that to court. She called it DCF. She called it DCF. And I claimed over and over, I didn't call. I did not call. And so the judge didn't believe me. And so that's another reason he was like, see, she's just whatever. So they were claiming that. So before I went, I had my attorney. I'm like, get evidence that I didn't make that call. He actually called the abuse hotline, and they told him, we can't give you that. That's an anonymous to make an abuse. And so he goes, oh, okay. He told me the whole thing that he had to say. He goes, I'll get a subpoena, and I'll have a witness come from Tallahassee to Orange County. And so they were like, fine. So I gave him the document. It was fabulous.
Yeah.
He called the DCF on himself and blamed it on me. So the whole time, he claimed that I called on his vacation to use it against me, but he did it himself. And then constantly was like, you are always calling the police. That you called on my vacation and ruined my vacation. So that was his claim. So now I have this piece of evidence. The judge is going to see.
Yeah.
I'm not lying.
Yeah.
I didn't lie. He's the liar.
Yeah.
So he gets to that point where he starts talking about it. And I'm like so anxious for my attorney. And he shows it to him. Like, did you call? Oh, yeah, I did call. Judge just ignored it. And then he denied their motion to get custody of the kids based on the fact that I made it up, because I didn't make it up.
Right.
I didn't make
evidence.
it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And plus there was another judge already on that case. So what they did to fight that is, because they were so mad, is now Chris hired his attorney to represent the pervert who molested our daughter. Yeah. So they can get this taken care of, get it off the case. So he got the judge. He argued at the next hearing for the injunction to be permanent. He said that this is a one family, one court rule, which apparently exists. We need to have this in front of Judge. So she goes, let me call. She calls. She goes, yes, we're going to have to change this to Judge. I knew it right then. It's over.
Right.
It's useless. So in between then, we had our next court date. We had psychological evaluations done. And so he texted me. He goes, you think you're going to win? You're going to get every other weekend and Wednesday overnights. And that's it. And I said, you're crazy if you think that an abuser like you, felon over and over, is going to get custody of these kids. They're going to favor you over me, who has done nothing wrong.
Yeah.
You're crazy. And he said, I have $28,000 that says you're wrong. And that is exactly what the judge gave him, was every other weekend, or gave me every other weekend and Wednesdays overnights. Permanently.
That's just
for 14 years.
mind-blowing.
We presented evidence of the psychological evaluations. We both had to do 4-hour Macmillan tests. Mine showed generalized anxiety and numbing with alcohol. And this one's interesting. Literally on the transcripts of when she came to testify. Issues with boundary and control, or letting people having power and control over her.
I mean, that spills it out right there.
That is my issue. That is the biggest issue I have, is I allow all these people to abuse the crap out of me.
But that should be proof right there too, that that's what he's doing to you.
It's exactly what, and you know what? I on Wednesday I had to go to a visit that was it was a diagnostic kind of for mental health. And I was telling her about specifically that. And I right before that, I was telling a story about my boss doing something that was like, I allowed it. I allowed them to just abuse me and control me. And I go, oh my God, I still have that issue. And she goes, I put that together too.
At least you're self-aware, right?
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
you can fix it then.
Sometimes
So.
it's just talking about it, be like, oh yeah.
How do you do that?
Exactly. And that's what does help me eventually, once I recognize that I do that. But his came back with bipolar disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So no problem with people with bipolar disorder. Everyone can manage, but this man's never taken responsibility for anything he's done. In fact, he's been rewarded for the abusive things he's done over and over. So he gets a license to act like a maniac. And that's the problem with our court systems if they are allowing this kind of stuff to happen. Meantime, I had talked to so many other people. I actually formulated a group of people that have all had judges. So specifically, we became the victims of those corruption.
Well, at least you didn't feel alone.
I wasn't. Yeah. There was people that were even worse situations than mine. But in any event, we had her testify. He has bipolar disorder. He was known to be abusive. He's got felonies. And there's all these time sharing factors that the judge has to go by. And literally at the end, when he's giving the ruling, he goes down the list. And for mental fitness, he goes, I don't even want to get into this one because I don't feel like anybody here has a disorder, because I don't like that word, disorder.
Okay.
I would say, you don't like it.
You don't have to like it.
Yeah, you're not a doctor,
Right.
so it doesn't matter anyway. Because you're a judge. You should be judging the situation based on facts and not what you like or don't like. That's an opinion, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's literally on the documentation. I don't like that word. So mental fitness, we're both crazy in his mind, just as crazy as each other. And both kids are poor kids, don't have a mom or a dad that's worth a damn, It made me sink and made me sick to my stomach to hear those words amongst all the other words. And that I was going to be paying child support, and I got every other weekend and Wednesdays. That's what I got, exactly to the T. So then in the meantime, I wanted to go away to Massachusetts during Christmas. And during that time, I wanted to take the kids. And we put it in the documents that if I wanted to go out of state with them, I had to get permission. Of course, he said no. So my attorney filed a motion. The judge wrote the wrong dates on there. And by the time he said yes to it, it was too late to get tickets. These are too expensive. So we canceled it, and I just kept the kids for the right amount of time that I had. Well, they said I was in contempt of court because I was supposed to bring the kids 2 days back based on that motion of bringing them back 2 days before. It was stupid. It was just dumb. It was moot anyway because I didn't go.
Yeah.
So they filed a contempt of court on me. We go to a hearing, and the judge says, you're going to get 79 days in jail. 79 days in jail. And I'm like, what else? Oh my gosh. I've already lost my kids. I already got to pay this man child support that abused me in every single possible way possible. Took my kids from me. I hate his guts. And so at this point, I was like, what else can you possibly do to hurt me? I don't care anymore. Just I am so numb to this. So that's when my family got involved. That's all of a sudden where my brothers decide that they want to be a part of this. But my sister's not going to jail. So they hired their lawyer. Now I had 2 lawyers going. And she's going to get this judge recused off my case, which all the lawyers said couldn't do it. But because this was such a tricky thing, it was obviously corrupt. She was going to get him off the case. And at that point, I actually made a petition online, and I got 500 signatures of all these different people who had the same judge. And still to this day, since 2017, I still get signatures on that thing.
Wow.
Yeah. So then they did the this January 2018, they filed the corrupt order for custody and for me to pay child support. And so now they tacked on this criminal charge. And that lawyer that my brothers hired was worse. She made my whole situation worse. I got that judge off my case, but she wouldn't even let me go to the hearing. She refused to let me go. And she did something worse to where I couldn't ever get it reheard. So I was like, I'm going to fire her. I told so many times to so many people, I'm like, I want to be my own attorney. And everyone's like, you can't. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know. I'm like, I think I know a little bit more than they do. Right. They're not making it better.
Yeah.
They made it worse.
Yeah.
And everyone just kept discouraging me. So I waited and waited. And finally, that was it. Once she made it worse, I fired both the attorneys, both of them. And my brother was mad. I didn't care at the time. I thought he would be happy because like he doesn't have to pay for this. And he called me on my birthday. He wished me a happy birthday. And I go, did you hear? I'm going to be my own attorney. He goes, yeah, I heard. You're acting so flippant about it. I paid for that. I can't get my money back. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, well, I just don't think you can do it. You're going to make your case. You're going to end up in jail. And I go, so?
I mean, that's where they were heading with. I mean, it's what they were doing to you with the attorneys.
Exactly.
Anyways, how could it get worse?
I was already in prison.
Yeah.
long time before this is what it felt like.
Yeah.
So I did it anyway. And so I filed my motion for appearance. And apparently this terrified his attorney. It was the right move.
Really?
I'm so glad I didn't listen to anybody because he started to threaten me. I never knew he was colluding with the other side because it was so suspicious how my attorney would say one thing and act differently. I could have called a mistrial so many times on all the stuff I found out about afterwards, but I just let it go because I just had to focus on getting these kids back. So it was going to cost me $20,000 to do an appeal, and I started it. I'm like, this is overwhelming. They let you take 3 months to put this in with extensions. It took every second I had to extend. But I even lost my job during it because I had to look up case law. I had to learn how to be an attorney in just days, like months and stuff. I would stay up at night. I didn't do anything else. I didn't have any friends. I didn't do anything. I mean, I had Crystal, and I would come every Sunday, be like, "This is what's going on now." Like an update on here. And so one day his attorney got so upset, and he was like. He was terrified because he couldn't bribe the other attorney. He didn't know what he was going to do. And he knew I was going to expose him. I told him, I'm going to expose you because there was illegal things he's done. Illegal. And he sent me an email. He goes, I'll make you a deal. I'll drop the charges if you drop your appeal. And I was like, I know I got him now. You're extorting me. That means, you're desperate. Yeah. That's a hell no. Yeah. This is obviously I struck gold here, and I had no idea. So, and I told him that's extortion, and he's like, oh. And so when I tried to bring it up at the next hearing, he just interrupts me. Objection. That's private attorney. Privileged information. I'm like, I'm not an attorney.
That's not his client.
Well, no, because I'm attorneys and attorney.
Oh, attorney to attorney. That's right.
Yeah. Like privileged information. I'm like, I am not an attorney. I'm not an attorney. Wrong. Yeah. Oh, but the judge was like, yep. Shh. So I couldn't talk about it. That was okay because I just kept moving forward. And there was one time where we're sitting at a bench, and he's trying to threaten me. By speaking loud enough, like sitting so close to me, going, that's okay. The judge is not going to, they're just going to throw out the appeal. Like, looking at me like, is she listening? Oh, yeah, they're never going to make it. She's a, like, that's going to work.
Yeah.
Like, those bullying tactics work with everybody else, but you've already strengthened me to the point that I'm not going to fall for it. It's just fueling me, making me know your fear, right? So I did it. I finally did it. I sent it, and I was so nervous. But, he had a certain amount of days to respond, do a reply. So in the day that I got it, it was the craziest feeling because I read those words and I'm like, I'm up against a 30-year attorney. Mm-hmm. I don't know what I'm in for. Like, this guy has friends. Mm-hmm. I'm a nobody. But Crystal she was leading like this group. Now I'd been in it for like a year. And it seemed like every single time we were on a certain Bible lesson, there was, it was meaningful for me. And there was something in it that always said the weak ones always win. The weak ones always win. And at my lowest points, I would remember those lessons. And there was this one time where I was getting like suicidal right before I became my own attorney. And I lost it multiple times. I was very super suicidal because I just thought there was no hope. But this one particular time is the reason why I came up with this word, immovable ministry. I was sitting there and I was like meditating on something because I was talking to someone. They said, your problem is you're always wavering to your problems, to the left and the right. Whatever the problem is, you run to it. Mm-hmm. Maybe you just need to sit still for a second. And so I just kept thinking about that and I was meditating one day and I was picturing myself like on a rock in the middle of the ocean, like just nothing in sight. And then all these problems like a tornado came, like the judge and the violence and my kids being out of control and like not being able to do anything to help them. And then I just closed my eyes in the vision and then I heard the words, be immovable. And it was like I opened up my eyes and watched everything just wash away, and that's still to this day how I live my life. Is I remember when things get tough, to stop trying to fix it, because the more I tried to fix it, the more I tried to show people he's the crazy one, he's the one that's doing all this, the more people just looked at me like you're the crazy one. So anyway, I filed the documents. He drops the charges, of course.
So you filed the documents for the
appeal.
Okay.
Yeah, so the $20,000 documents it would have cost for an attorney to do it. Lost my job during it because it just was like a whole thing. And then he decided to move in the abuser, right? As soon as I sent that document in, he texted me in. And I had learned already to never let him see me upset because then he does the thing more. Mm-hmm. So he's like, by the way, we're moving in. Sister and brother-in-law. And I go, do I need to send you the document again? I'm going to send it. And I sent it to him. I'm like, do you see? He verified, molested her. I don't care what that document says. Ain't nothing. You can't tell me what to do. I do whatever I want. He was doing it on purpose just to make me upset. And in the meantime, he went on vacation. You want to tell me, oh, they're going on vacation, staying in the same hotel as us. And I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction to be like, you're a disgusting piece of crap for doing this.
For allowing that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he just was like, I don't care what you do. So I was like, fine, have a good time. So I didn't know what else to do at this point. He had filed his reply, and the day that I saw the reply, I fell to my knees, and I cried. I was like, I'm not going to be able to defeat this. Like, he's got this on lock. I can't do this. Mm-hmm. And then I fell asleep just like crying. And I remember it's the craziest thing. Like, you could believe this or not, but I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how I was going to respond to this. Like, I thought it was over. I get one more response and then that's it. They close it. And I woke up from my sleep, dead of night, 3:00 in the morning. And I, like, you know, like in the Matrix, like, I know Kung Fu. That's what this moment was like. Because, like, I had legal arguments spinning in my head that I had no idea. I don't know where they came from. It must have been God. It had to have been. Like, it had to have been. So I just went to my computer and it was done. I can't believe it. Like, it was the craziest thing. And so then he had this reaction where he's just going to move him in. And so I fell to my knees again. I'm like, there's nothing I can do. And I had a friend at this time who is so funny. Like, I go, I can't do anything because they already took my kids away with the only basis as, do you call the DCF and law enforcement too much? That was the only reason I got 26% custody. And he got the other, or no, I got 24. He got 76. So I was like, I can't say anything. And she was so funny. She goes, you're going to put your big girl panties on. We're going to write this motion. And somebody, and she was like a prophet. She knew. She goes, the judge is going to give you custody of the kids, but it's only going to be temporary. I'm like, what? She goes, I don't want to tell you about that, but I just had this vision. I just believe it. Somebody is going to see this document that has been abused and is going to do something about it. I'm like, that's crazy. I filed the thing, and that day, they never get this response. Like, she wanted to have an emergency hearing. And at the time I was praying Exodus 14:14. We learned about this in one of the Bible studies. It was, the Lord will fight your battles. You will not have to say a word. And that is exactly what happened. Like, I went there and I didn't even get a chance to talk. Like, I just went there. And I kept trying to say something. She goes, sit down. She starts yelling at him. And he's like, he's not going to hurt her. He's not going to do anything because she's going to be sleeping in my bed. She goes, I don't care. You can't do it in the middle of the night or when you're at work. Yeah. I don't want anyone near these kids. And I was like, oh, my God. You do answer prayers. You answer prayers. I was so happy. And so they said, all right, you're going to have to do a hearing. How long do you need, Miss Godin? And I'm like, oh, they're asking me. I'm the attorney. Yes. I go, I think I could do it in 2 weeks. And they're like, okay. And so they set the hearing. It was October 15th. It's actually technically a trial. October 15th, 2018. And I subpoenaed 7 people. 7 people. I had the detective. I had the DCF agent. I had three of the therapists for my daughter, and then I had Dr. Piddington, the one that said that I was he would come, and he did, and the abuser of my daughter, and so each one testified no. And it was like this crazy thing too, is like that same kind of feeling of like, I've never been a lawyer. I prepared for it like crazy. I watched videos on YouTube. I always say like YouTube University. Yeah. Like I read an article from an actual judge that said what he looks at. And he's like, poker face. Do not even raise an eyebrow. And he goes, he goes like, yay. Yeah. I ended up subpoenaing all these people, and it was really crazy because I had 4 people that came at that time. And in between, in the breaks, they were like, you're like Perry Mason over there. It's like invoking the spirit of Perry Mason. That's amazing. Where I didn't know how I prepared the questions, but I would ask them in a way where, for example, the whole thing got brought up again. I knew it would, about me calling the DCF during his vacation. And that was when I was on the stand, and his attorney goes, oh, isn't it true that you just made all that up because you wanted to ruin the vacation? I go, I knew it. I knew that's what you were trying to argue. I already knew that. And I go, no, I didn't. And we proved that last time, remember? And he's like, oh, and he moved on. So I brought that document. Of course I did. And I get Chris on the stand. And I go, isn't it true? Because he even said it on his part of his testimony. Oh, she called the DCF. But I get to question him. My lawyers, I'd always be like, do this. And they would always be, no, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. And I'm like, just try it.
Yeah.
So I said to him, I go, isn't it true that I called the DCF on your vacation in 2016? Yeah, that's right. You called the DCF on my. Oh, I called, right? I called the DCF on your vacation, right? And he's like, you did? You always, because you're so dramatic and you're always playing the victim and everybody always is so sick and tired of you. And I go, oh, okay. And I hand him the document and I'm like, whose number? Read that number right there. He goes, I don't have my glasses. I go, can you see the number? Is that your number? That's my number. I said, whose name is on that call for the DCF? Well, I did. He goes, but I called because you're always. I said, oh, for 2 years. You claim that I called the DCF on your vacation, and here we are. I didn't call the DCF. You lied. You lied for 2 years. And he goes, yeah. And I said, next question. And I kept asking questions. And then so I got the abuser on the stand. And I've learned this trick on YouTube too, to get people to confess to things. It's interesting. With a narcissist, you really need to inflate and deflate. So you pump them up and tell them what a good person they are, and you compliment them so that their head is all in the clouds because they're so happy and inflated and and then they don't know what to do with themselves because they're not used to being deflated like that. So I said to him, I said, you love Gabby, right? I do. I do. I really, they're like my own kids, you know, the other kids. I've always loved her. It's been a part of. Oh yeah, you've been a good brother-in-law and everything, right? You've just been very trusting towards them. Yeah, and I go, and I already had questioned earlier the DCF. I'm like, do they get them to trust you? Like these people who groom you, do they get you? Yes, that's part of it. They convince them to trust you. So I made sure. He goes, yes, they trust me. They trust me. You know, and I go, During the vacation recently, just like last month or so, did you give my daughter a wet willy? He goes, yeah, okay, yeah, she liked it. And I go, was she sleeping? Yeah, but she laughed. And I go, So this child that has accused you of molesting her, you decided it would be hilarious to put saliva on your finger and insert your finger into her ear while she's asleep. You thought this was a good idea? Yeah, it's funny. And I go, And then I went into it. You did this, and you did this, and you did this. 100%, didn't you? He goes, no. And I go, thank you. No further questions. And the judge was like, and he didn't have any questions, other attorney. So after that, it was like these crazy things of like when to object. I figured that out. Like I didn't know how to do that before. But I did my closing argument. He was doing his, and he was reading right off of the document of the final judgment that was under appeal. And I stood up and I go, objection, this is under appeal. So it can't, like, how did I know that? There's no way I would have known that. And she goes, sustained. And furthermore, she got him to confess that he's lied under oath. And he could be under penalty of perjury if she takes this up to it. So technically, that is null and void. And I go, oh my God. I did it. Oh my gosh. But she did favor in it for me. He was never allowed to be around her again. But she just put the kids right back to the situation again. But apparently, he was so mad at this time. This was a crazy time, right? He was so mad, and I was on such a high from finally winning. It was just okay, because I'd already been dealing with this. But they go back to him, and he is so mad that he starts really losing his mind, just full on. And that was one thing we kept praying, was like, let him be like Nebuchadnezzar. Turn him into an animal, God. Turn him into, that's like exactly what happened to him.
Yeah.
He turned into a wild animal. Oh, and then he immediately broke the order. So he kept the kids on a day that it was my day. So I filed for a warrant. I'd been trying to get this man arrested this whole time. He'd been arrested 4 times before for domestic violence, easy. But he had a rap on the police, too. So I ended up getting a warrant for his arrest because he immediately broke it and he just kept doing it over and over again. So he went to jail for 7 days, got out, did it immediately again. And then the judge, and apparently during that time, his father died. And so the judge let him out so he could go to the funeral. And she's like, if you do it again, you're going to stay all the way to Christmas. And so he gets out. I feel bad for him. This is why I learned never to have sympathy on people ever again, because I shouldn't have felt bad for him, because he immediately stabbed me in the face by filing a stupid motion for custody. But he just kept getting worse. And his neighbor started calling me. He goes, I always thought you were crazy because he told us that you were the evil, crazy one. And I'm like, why does she want these kids to get away from this really great father? He's like, he's a sociopath because he convinced me. And he did like FBI work. He worked for the FBI. And
The neighbor?
Like, yeah. And he was convinced by him. That's how good of a sociopath he was. And so he goes, I have to get a restraining order against him because every time I walk outside my house, he's doing something crazy. Like he's ripping his shirt off in the front yard, throwing bricks, yelling at him every single time, like saying, you're a millennial, you don't belong here. He can't even take out his trash. Like there was police reports on this over and over.
I mean,
and
he was
over.
literally losing his mind.
Literally turned into a wild animal.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
That's what I prayed for.
Yeah.
That's what we prayed for so long. And then one day I get a call. He had called the DCF on me so many times. He was harassing me nonstop, worse than ever. And he got the Winter Springs Police Department called me, the lieutenant. He goes, can you come pick up these kids? They're not safe here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We're going to Baker Act him. And I'm like, he's been calling the Winter Springs Police Department over and over again. And so finally we walked into his house. It's not a place for kids. It's not safe. And he goes, there's a mess everywhere. Looks like a psychopath. But yeah, everyone knew he was losing his mind. So I go pick up the kids. He gets Baker Acted, does some time. And in the meantime, he's like, why don't you have custody? Why don't you go get custody of these kids? I'm like, why didn't I think of that? I don't know. And I'm like, because I can't. He goes, you need to do an injunction. These kids are not safe here. And I said, okay, well, they told me already I can't, but I'll try it. But will you back me up? He goes, I'll back you up, okay? And so I go down there. So I do the injunction. The neighbor does the one with me at the same time.
Wow.
His gets immediately approved. He gets a temporary injunction immediately for stalking. And I did mine and court date, and they didn't give me a temporary one. So I was upset again. I was like, but I knew it was going to happen. I called that lieutenant, and I left him a message. And I said, see, told you. They don't care about these kids. They don't care. And so the next day I filed for an ex parte where I could go and talk to the judge without, ask why and ask them to change their minds. So I go I go to the hearing at 8:30, and the judicial assistant comes out and is like, I was like, can I talk to the judge? And I was all panicking. And then like, she goes, shh. She goes, the judge changed her mind. She's going to give you 100%. I know. And I fell down on my knees. I'm like, oh my God. And she goes, this is just until the hearing, you know. The hearing was fabulous. It was hilarious because his attorney, by the way, he was humiliated. He quit right after that. Just kicked his butt. So I can
imagine.
I saw him walking down the aisle at our next hearing, and Chris is like trying to convince him, like, please, please, please. He goes, nope, just another day. Like, all those times I just defeated you, giant, like this stupid giant that terrorized me. That other giant, the judge, and now this last one, I have one more giant to defeat, and I freaking nailed him. He had no attorney. He was in jail because as soon as he got out of the Baker Act, they arrested him because he broke the injunction from his neighbor. He immediately goes, I don't care. So they arrested him. So he's in jail from a jail cell. And I brought his neighbors to come and testify. They did fabulous. They apologized. They were like, I'm so sorry that I said that I loved him. And I'm like, no, I needed you to say that. Yeah. That was the truth. Like, like, and they're like, good. And I go, I won. The day that she said those words, it was like all worth it. Yeah. Every second of it, all of it. Yeah. You know, I was in shock, you know, and there was so much that happened afterwards, but it's just like over time, every time I go through something now, I just remember that anything's possible. Like anything that I can be afraid of, there's no reason to fear, right? And it is really like Exodus 14:14. He'll fight. You don't have to say a word. You have to trust, though. That's the problem, is you have to trust.
I think I just love that story. As you were telling it, I was like, oh, this is where I started to know you, you know, as in my own recollection in my mind. And, you know, I think what's so powerful about your story is that when you began to believe more in yourself and your abilities, and you blocked out what all of those toxic voices were saying to you, that is when like, and you know, I'm a firm believer in God and in all the things that you were saying, but like when you put your trust in him, not all of the things around you, that's when, you know, I'm not going to say that's when the exact win happened or anything, but that I feel like
it is,
you know, what a great thing to take with you, that the more you believed in yourself, that I feel like that's when the proverbial tide changed, you know, and what a powerful story of, you know, you became your own lawyer, and anybody who wants to give a law degree. We actually we just joked with her forever for a time, just like, you need to go to law school. You need to go to law school. You need to go to law school.
And the thing is what I always say is, like, I loved law. I always did. Even in school, I was very much I did criminal justice. I loved law. I did law studies and all that. I wanted to be a lawyer, but I just didn't want to. I was afraid of public speaking, believe it or not. Now everything's, again, tables have turned, right? But I don't want to because of the corruption. It's so triggering for me. I don't want to be a lawyer because I know there are going to be times where I'm fighting for something I believe in, and a judge is going to do something corrupt and there's nothing I can do. That would drive me crazy and make my life miserable. I'd rather help people some other way, like stuff like this, you know, help people by talking and sharing and being hopeful for somebody.
Yeah, and your story is full of hope. It is.
Thank you. Yeah. And that was like, it was exactly like what you're talking about. Like, it was me writing down on a piece of paper everything on January 1st of 2019, all the stuff I gave up, and I went on my bike and I burned it. And just said, I let you, God, do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked into that courtroom on January 25th, 2019 and said, you have control. I don't know what this judge is going to do. I'm not going to say, this is what has to happen. Please just make it this way. I'm asking you, can you fix it? And he did. So that is hope. That is the hope, not the expectations. And that was the battle I faced, was when I expected a certain outcome. It was either, if it was my expectation was for something to be good, it would always be within, a very far distance of what I expected, and then I was disappointed. Or if I was negative, then I've got a poor attitude about it, and I don't want to fight for it because I feel like there's no point. So I just said to hope for whatever I needed to happen, and I still try to live by that. It's hard, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's easy to hear the world and be like, oh, they're right, I suck, I'll never be good enough, but you can do it.
Yep.
You can do it.
Yeah.
If anyone can do it like me, anyone can do it. Like, anyone can do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking your time to share with us such a vulnerable story. We thank you for allowing us in to hear the intimate details of your life, and I'm so thankful that I got to know you and that it has affected my own life as well. And just I'm really thankful that I got to see your perseverance through the hardest times, and how you didn't give up, and you didn't succumb.
Yeah. Even though I wanted to.
Yeah. And now here you are.
Yeah.
To tell an
Feels
amazing story of redemption. I guess that's the right word.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. And this guy, just so you know, he's in jail today.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to be in jail for a long time. Well, we're thankful that you have your kids, that you have your peace.
Yes.
That they get to be with you 100% all the time.
I'm so happy about that, too. Every time something bad goes wrong, I'm like, at least I got my kids.
Yeah. Tell us one more time, where can we find you?
So I'm on Instagram, Jonelle Godin Photography. I'm also Immovable Ministry on Facebook, and I'm also going to start trying to make some more videos for Immovable Ministry on YouTube, and then on TikTok. It's just my name, Jonelle Godin 1. And then also I'm currently starting a channel called Jonelle's English channel, but I haven't really fully done that yet. But just check this the future.
Very good.
Yeah, and if this story has impacted you at all, please leave us a comment. Send us a message. We'd love to hear how it's impacted you, your thoughts, your feelings. And you can find us wherever you find podcasts. So, all righty.
Thank you, Jonelle, so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for letting me
sharing
on
your
show.
story.
Thank you.
All righty. We'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Until next time. Bye.